what role, you mentioned it before, and I promised that we'd get back to that. What role the core family values, the purpose you mentioned before, what role does that play in preserving the legacy of a family-owned business?
Sure. I mean, I think it's ultimately crucial. I would kind of echoing a little bit of what Carlos said is, I think, let's say that the more technical side of managing this is actually probably more straightforward, right? And it's either you can learn the skills yourself or hire various professionals to help you do it, lawyers, accountants, et cetera, maybe CEOs. I think that's actually easier. I think it's the kind of the actual values or the meanings within the family that is much, much harder. That there's sort of no one can solve that problem for you. In essence, it's sort of something that you as a family need to figure out between yourselves and other family members. I think there's also, let's say, one thing that Carlos didn't touch on that I think is important to consider, right, is I think one of the reasons that, let's say, these conversations end up being so difficult is within family businesses. Let's say that the line between, let's say, the family within the business and the family outside the business is extremely blurry and hard to potentially separate those conversations. So very much, let's say, elements from one bleed into the other and vice versa, right? Elements of I don't know, let's call it family grievances like family grievances will bleed into the businesses, and the elements of, let's say, business debates or whatnot will bleed into the family life. And I think that is one of the challenges, right? Is when you have these family businesses, you almost can't avoid it. Your life and your business is so intermingled with each other, you can't kind of avoid it on either side. And so, let's say if things are not going well, it kind of affects all of your life compared to one element of your life, which can be quite difficult. On some more maybe like specific things, on one thing that I've seen is, from talking to a number of families, it seems like values transfer is one of the biggest things that some of these families are worried about. Is they ask, how do we make sure that we transfer these values from our older generation to the younger generation? There is a really interesting statistic out there that basically says about 85% of the next gen believe that they're ready to take over, while only 39% of the kind of current gen believe the next gen is ready to take over. So there is this kind of dichotomy between and beliefs on are they ready? Do they have the values or not? And you kind of see it from the different sides. A different thing as well that I just think that you tend to see play out in family businesses is often, let's say, the first generation often, this is a side statistic that we didn't talk about, but generally speaking, if you want to be worth more than $10 million, I think it's 80% of the people who are worth more than $10 million are through business ownership. Like that's the primary way to kind of really excel your wealth. So most of the people have businesses. So if you are kind of first generation, to do this, you need to be a business owner. So you probably have entrepreneurial values. You have kind of an entrepreneurial mindset. And one of the things I think that you tend to see is that for a lot of these entrepreneurs, they don't necessarily want their children or grandchildren to have this kind of same entrepreneurial life that they had, because usually that tends to be a lot more working hours to kind of dedicate your life to your business to make it successful. They said, oh, I spent 80, 90, 100-hour weeks. I don't want my children to do that. However, you sort of also have this dynamic that overly simplifying, but realistically, if you produce more than you consume, your wealth will grow. And if you consume more than you produce, your wealth will shrink, like in a very, very kind of basic level. And so without instilling, entrepreneurial mindsets is very much the mindset of a producer, creating more value than you consume. Without instilling those values to the next generation, then they're going to consume more value than they produce. And that just means that over time, the family's wealth is going to shrink and disintegrate. And I think that's one thing that I think, it's kind of interesting because it seems almost counterintuitive. But family members want to kind of save the future generations from the lifestyle that they have, but they're almost setting themselves up for maybe not the immediate next generation, but kind of the family failure in the long run, or let's say the non-preservation of the wealth in the long run.
Right. It is counterintuitive. And yes, Carlos, you wanted to dive in.
Building on what Alex have just said, from my point of view, it's impossible to think that family members can avoid to have crucial or difficult conversation. It's not possible. They are going to have this kind of conversation, but what they can do is to equip family members with the right mindset and the right skills in order to have this difficult conversation. And when a family is able to do that, this kind of conversation not only are more productive and get better and deliver better results, but it's a way to put values in action. Because when you are having this kind of conversation, you are role modeling the values that have helped the family business thrive among the years. So it's more, you get more than good results if you are able to have this conversation with the right mindset and the right behaviors, because you are helping to build something stronger that is connected with the values of the family, and this is more powerful than even the results that you are going to have.